So speaking of Bethesda games are one of the awesome games in which you can switch between third person and first person perspective.
Ah,
Yes,
So you wanted to
nice
talk about
segue.
this, right, Jordan?
I did indeed, and I'm very glad you brought that up. Star Wars Battlefront is another one of those games. And I guess the updated version on PS4 and Xbox One and PC of Grand Theft Auto is also the same way.
Yep.
So yeah, this discussion is about first versus third person perspective in games, and personally, I'm a way bigger fan of third person. I feel like it gives me a lot better spatial awareness, and I enjoy seeing my character on screen and what they look like and how they're dressed, and the weapons they're using. And I'll be honest, like when a game is strictly first person, I'm starting to get to the point where there's so many great third person games. I'm just like, do I want to play this game? Like, if it's really good, Dishonored or Bioshock, stuff like that, I'm definitely going to play it. But for the most part, I just stick to third person because I just enjoy that perspective of gaming so much more. And of course, there's other ones like isometric and, top down and all different kinds of points of view. But I would say first and third are the biggest two that get used. So, how do you guys feel about the perspectives?
Um, yeah, for me, I think it's interesting that you wouldn't say it's a purchase decision, but you do think about it subconsciously or even a little bit consciously of like this game's first person. Is it good enough for me to want to go through that? I guess is what it sounds
Yeah.
like. For me, I play both ways. I enjoy both ways. I think for any Bethesda game, I go first person almost throughout the entire game, just because for me playing a first person game seems a little bit more uh, personal and
Yeah.
invested. Like I feel like I'm actually in that world. I do agree with you that third person does give you a lot more spatial awareness. I could not ever imagine playing a Dark Souls game in first person.
Oh
That would
man,
be insane.
Jeez.
there was a mod on PC that did that. Oh man, I'm gonna have to look up that
That's
video again and
crazy.
show you guys. It was
Um,
nuts.
and like I love third person games. I love obviously 2D platforms are third person in some kind of aspect because you're looking at your character, right? And I think there's a place for both for me personally, and I enjoy both. I do
Yeah.
find that more often than not, if a game is third person, I make arguments to myself of I feel this would be better in first person than the other way around. And you're gonna hate me for this, Jordan, but like Sunset Overdrive, that game's a good game. I'm not saying it's a bad game, but being so far out of it, and I understand why, because you need to be able to understand where you're jumping and stuff like that. I just lose any motivation or connection to that character, and which is weird
Oh,
because I don't feel that way with The Witcher, but with like Sunset Overdrive, I don't feel connected to that character, and
I'm trying to imagine that game in first person right
it
now.
would be crazy. I'm not saying it would be viable or right, but in my head, I'm like, man, I wonder would I like this game more if it was in first person, right? But
Wow.
that didn't stop me from playing that game. I it when it comes to like sword fighting or like like very physical combat that's not Dark Souls, I'm 100% down with first person. I take that over anything. But then there's Dark Souls, and I can't say I wouldn't play Dark Souls because it's in third person. That's absolutely ludicrous, you know. So I appreciate both. I understand both. I think for me, if it's an encapsulated story where you're trying to build the environment and kind of have this feel, I think first person plays for me way better. But if it's more of like not so much of the character, like if it's a character creation or like the character isn't the story the world is, then I can see third person being more viable to me and what interests me in that world. So
I
I don't know.
think I think the reason a lot of people can't get into Dishonored is because of the fact that it's in first person and not third.
Yeah,
I
especially
think
because it's
about
a
that all the
stealth
time.
game. Like a stealth
Yeah.
game, I think for a stealth game to work, you need to be able to see your character as a whole
Same
because you need to
thing.
see how you can hide and stuff like that. So
Same thing with Deus Ex.
yeah. Well, can't you switch?
Deus
Or is that one?
Ex.
Is that one? I thought it was in third
When
person.
you go into cover, it goes out to third, and then as soon as you get out of cover, it goes back to first.
That's
It's really,
weird.
That's
really
weird. I thought it was. I think you could switch between both. That's weird.
It's very weird.
But see, like a first-person Assassin's Creed game actually has me intrigued. Like I love third person in that game,
Ooh.
and obviously you want to be able to climb and stuff like that. But like being able to run through the crowds in first person and like hearing yourself breathe, like knocking people away, or like hiding and seeing the person you need to target walk right by you, that's really
Yeah.
interesting to me. And it kind of makes it more intimate because a lot of Assassin's Creed is about intimate kills and experiences, So I wouldn't say I'm on either side of the fence. I like both equally. So I don't really have a dog in the fight.
Yeah, I'm with you. I like both equally.
No
too.
dog fights, Jared. We're not doing any dog fights around here.
Pokemon pretty close.
Yeah, that's another good topic for another day because I've had that thought before too. Anyway, sorry.
About Pokemon being about dog fights?
It's if you look at it at its core, you're catching creatures and making them fight each other for
Technically,
money.
you don't make them fight because in the lore of Pokemon, they don't have to fight if they don't want to.
But you're keeping them captive.
We gotta talk about that, yeah.
But
anyway,
a conversation for another day.
All right. Okay, so I'm with you. One's not necessarily better than the other because of it being first or third person. It just depends on the game, the genre. Like everything plays into it. So if you've done like any literary study, like when you're reading a book, the perspective is extremely important and something you might not think about when you're reading it. But your English teacher will bring up, like, why do you think they chose to write this book from a first-person perspective as opposed to, like, an all-knowing narrator type of thing? Because then it just – and there's 100 different answers. It just depends on the book, right, and the reason. So it depends on the game and how they want it to feel and play. And a lot goes into it, right? So it just has to be the right choice. Maybe some games they chose to do third-person. They should have done first or vice versa. As long as it's the right choice and it works well in that game, then I'm down with it.
And who knows better than them? Sometimes the game maybe it doesn't work in the other perspective, and that's why they didn't choose it.
I'm dying to have Dishonored third person, guys. I got to be honest with you. I love the game, but boy, would I love it if it was in third.
So to your Bethesda point, Jared, yeah, I play primarily like Skyrim and Fallout in first person, but whenever I'm running through the field, or just not in combat or not inside doing something, click that baby out to third person just so I can see what my guy looks like.
I don't understand how people pick up items or like pickpocket and stuff in third person because it's not that clear. Like it's very. I'm like, how do you play this game the whole way through third person? Yeah. Like, there's very intimate moments where you need to be in first person. So that's crazy to me. First person Pokemon is interesting to me. I don't know if it'd be good, but it is interesting. And I have a question for you going to this argument of, so a lot of people feel that almost every AAA game or any game should be able to be mapped to the gamer's choice, right? Control or map however you want. And that's a discussion of like, is the gamer entitled to that or not? Should you just play it the way the developer envisioned? Do you think that if
they have that on PC, by the way?
Yeah. But
throwing that out there.
Yeah. Do you think that almost every open world game or expansive game or AAA game should give players a choice? Should all of them come with third person, first person, you make the choice? Or do gamers have to kind of deal with what the developers and designers want you to play?
It's what they want.
It would be so difficult for the developers.
Yeah.
But I would love it if every game was switchable.
Yeah.
If it's one of the two, then I think it would be awesome to have the choice between both.
See, they should just make it one way and not shoehorn in a second. If they made both from the ground up, then that's one thing. But to me, like, that needs to be a different game. So if you look at Skyrim and Fallout, they're really made for first person primarily. I believe that. And then they kind of throw in the third person thing. It's fine, but that's not really the emphasis, I guess. Whereas like Battlefront does it much better. Switching to third person is actually viable.
Yeah,
exactly.
I usually play third.
Also with Bethesda, the hand if you notice, the hand animations in Bethesda games are so well done. When you pop out to third person, you jump and stuff, it just looks ridiculous.
Exactly. So if they would just focus on one or the other, then it'd be a little less clunky overall, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting. One game, we didn't even bring this up, one game that I don't know how people play in first person for the life of me are racing games. I have to be third person above the car driving that way. I don't know how people play first person driving games. It drives me insane. I watch people playing and I'm like, how are you doing this? It's like a tiny little window. You barely see the road. I'm like, how? I don't understand how you do this.
It's like it's impossible to do that in GTA 5. Going first person in a car, nope, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. I have a question for you before we close out this topic, and maybe you can just. Jordan already has his answer, so we don't need to really ask Jordan, and you'll see why. My question is, what game has a set perspective that you want it switched? So for him, is obviously Dishonored, right? We already know that answer.
Dishonored.
Is there a game for you that you want switched, or at least have the option of, Dom?
I don't know. I mean, I've never had that thought, and I'm sure there is an example that I could. If I go back to every game I ever played, I'm sure I could think of something. But for the most part, like I trust the developer and the perspective they chose to make their game with. Then, I'm gonna trust that they made the right choice. I can't think of any examples.
Yeah,
Dishonored, I think is fine, first person.
I don't. Off the top of my head, I don't think there's any game that I feel needs to be switched. But like I said,
Yeah.
I'm interested to see if I would enjoy Sunset Overdrive more if it was switched. I'm not saying it would make it a better game or anything, but
I can
am
barely
intrigued.
imagine that. Like, jumping on all those rails and just sliding around, it'd be like... I just
It'd be
feel
insane.
it'd be so jarring.
Yeah,
Imagine that first person in VR.
that'd be crazy too.
It's just like vomit-inducing machine, I bet.
The Witcher's a good answer too, though. Witcher's a pretty.
The Witcher
good
would be
answer.
cool. That's a good answer, yeah.
Well, see,
if they
but that
did a
game is-
Skyrim thing.
But the thing is that game's
Don't
all
you
about.
dare mess with my favorite fucking game.
That game's all
Get
about.
your hands off!
That game's all about Geralt, though, so it's about him. So you kind of want to see him to know you're playing as him. Whereas if you're in first person, you'd have that disconnect, and wouldn't feel like you're hearing his story. So I think there is a reason for that too.
So you don't get to see the
out.
armor in first
Also, that
person.
combat. I think that
I know,
combat
I
you need to
hate
be able to
that.
see the whole field. Like I think Witcher plays to you being able to see what's going on around you and kind of play with the tools you have around you, as opposed to like being in first person. I don't think you can use the tools at your disposal as the Witcher.
I really like seeing my character's clothing.
Yeah.
Also, forgot to mention Metal Gear Solid 5. And really, most of the Metal Gear Solid games you can switch.
Okay.
But a lot of times it's just when you're aiming.
Yeah. So I think to end this discussion, make Dishonored playable in third person for Jordan.
Oh, please.
Do it.
I want to see that. Corvo has such a cool mask. I want to see his mask. I never get to see it.
Ooh, do the nice spin around with like the sunlight coming in. Ooh, so pretty.
Yeah.